back. Did you put it in the new services document? So these are some of the constituent services you can do. So we have a flow event coming up again next week with the Department of Motor Vehicles, where you can get your license renewal, and my son may have to go to that as well. We'll have another one coming up 2 months later. But if you're having any kind of issues with a state agency where they're not being as responsive as they should be, or you're not getting the information you need, that is where we can be a liaison and be helpful in order to get their attention to get you the response. Here are some other constituent services we do. Bills filed. So far, we've had committee meetings, but we haven't heard any bills yet. These are some of the bills I filed so far. They are the social work licensure interstate compact. This would allow social workers to work remotely in other states that are compact states. It passed through the House unanimously last year, got stalled in the Senate. We've kind of reworked our Senate strategy, so we're hoping that it will be more successful this year than it has been in years past. And there's a public records bill that goes along with that, and then I have a Partnership Act. Responsible. So background checks for all firearm sales and transfers, right? Makes sense? You show a background check?
Yes.
Reinforcing safe storage requirements. If you have a weapon, you should safely store it so that it will not easily get into the hands of someone it shouldn't get into, the hands it should get into. Trigger locks or gun cases are provided with firearm purchase, as well as education on safe storage. And then it would also prohibit the possession or manufacturing of ghost guns. And those are the guns that don't have a serial number. You don't have to go through a background check to get them. And actually, the police really don't like ghost guns because they are untraceable. So if a crime happens with a firearm like this, you can't trace it, and that is a big problem. So, some of the appropriation requests we've made so far this year include the $600,000 for Eagles Haven, which we've done several years now. Are any of you familiar with Eagles Haven? Yeah. I mention it like everyone in the town hall meetings. So they provide free wellness and support services. They have licensed clinicians there. If you need any help or referrals with mental health, they also have wonderful classes, mind-body classes, things that can help with wellness, and they also have support groups. Additionally, Parkland has sent me their appropriations for emergency management enhancements and special needs accommodations at Pine Trails Park. Okay, special session on immigration. So this is how our schedule works right now. We got our committee week schedule, I think it was the end of November. And on that schedule, we had 1 week in December, which was Legislator University, which I really enjoyed. The majority leadership team put together panels so that new people and people who've been there a while got a refresher, new people learned about how the system works. And I was honored because I was asked to be on a panel about civility and professionalism in the process.
Nice.
Because there is such a thing as having differing points of view and being civil and professional in how you approach each other in those points of view. I did make the point that while you might disagree today on this issue, it doesn't mean on another issue, on another day, you won't agree on things. And you have to always have those dialogue open, honest. I have very passionate conversations with people at times, but it's never about attacking the person. It's always talking about the policy, because it's the policy that's going to make the positive or negative impact in everybody's lives. So we had then 2 weeks in January. Last week got canceled because of the snowstorm that hit Tallahassee. Originally being from like life or went to tuition. And then I realized that Tallahassee is not as equipped as the city of Boston is when it comes to snow.
Yeah.
So I had already been on my way up. I had some meetings. People convinced me that the government was not ready for this and I should leave, so I drove home because all the flights had been canceled. It was nice to see the pictures, but I'm glad I wasn't stranded there. There was a lot of sleet on roads and frozen ice, and it was dangerous. So then the governor had called a special session for this week, which was a week we weren't supposed to be in Tallahassee. And several of us had an issue with it because it's a week we're not supposed to be in Tallahassee. We had things scheduled at home in our districts. There were several areas that had delegation meetings scheduled, which is an opportunity to listen to the residents on what their concerns are. It's also expensive sending us up every week. And we now in February will have 3 more committee weeks, the first, second, and third week of February. The last week of February is for us to be in our districts. Don't know what will happen there. And then we go into session, which is 60 days. So usually that last week of February is when everybody has all their doctor's appointments, kind of gets everything taken care of at home before we go into the 60-day session. So the special session was called for a whole bunch of things. Some of the things that I noticed were not in that call were property insurance and housing affordability, 2 of the biggest issues I hear about all the time. So the governor called the session, which means we had to be there at that day and that time. To everyone's surprise, except for I think a handful of people, we gavelled in for session. The speaker then gavelled us out of session, and we gavelled in for a different special session right then and there. That was my expression from my desk as well. This was unprecedented, always interesting, and he and the Senate President had worked together on a different immigration bill, and that is what we went through this past special session. There was a lot in the immigration bill. The 2 points that kept coming up for many of us, and I am actually asked on the record, it basically said everybody who's in any way working with or affiliated with any public government, so it could even be like your waste contract people, it could be your advisory boards, they would be mandated to fully cooperate with the immigration officials. And it didn't really, I didn't understand what does fully cooperate mean, right? Does that mean you think somebody's here when they shouldn't be here and you can just go and do a citizen, like what does that mean? And I never got a great definition on that. And then on one of the sections, when I was Googling what other people think fully cooperate means, they said things like sharing information and that kind of stuff. So one of the questions I asked on the floor of the House was if that meant that a teacher would be required to call ICE on a kindergartner, for example.
Great question.
I thought it was a great question.
Great question.
And the answer to the question was, if they were asked to do so, yes. And that's on video, so you don't have to take my word for it. You can go watch the video history in the on the Florida channel. So if you go to Florida Channel Video Archives, you can actually look at all our committee meetings. You can see all the questions. It also mandated the death penalty if an unauthorized alien is convicted of a capital offense. And number one, I'd like to be very clear. Anybody who commits a capital offense, anybody who commits a crime, I don't care whether you're an immigrant or not an immigrant, I want safe communities, and I think you should be prosecuted, and nobody should be protecting people who are doing things that harm communities and people ever.
How about pardons?
And so we were told by several lawyers that this is absolutely unconstitutional. You can't have a mandatory death penalty, and there actually case law to prove that. Another issue was the issue of dreamers that came up a lot. So dreamers, young people who were brought here by someone, they didn't come here on their own, and a law that the current lieutenant governor, actually it was her signature bill during her time in the legislature, allowed them to receive in-state tuition. And this would repeal that so that they could no longer receive in-state tuition. And we had amendments that just said, hey, if they're already in a program and they're getting in-state tuition, just let them finish out their degree. Because I don't know how it makes any community safer for them to no longer access that education and finish their degree. So, but that didn't go over well. And then there were other things in there, so it ended up in the House. It passed completely on partisan lines, except one Republican voted against it because he wanted the governor's bill, not the speaker's bill. And in the Senate, there were 6 Republican senators who voted against it along with the Democrats. Some of them had an issue with the death penalty, some of them had an issue with the dreamer provision, and some of them wanted the governor's bill, not the speaker's bill. Whoa, there's one from that, that's interesting. So vote by mail. If you have not signed up to get your vote by mail ballot, please do. We have wonderful people here from the Supervisor of Elections office. They're fantastic. They come all the time, my absolute favorites, and they do a wonderful job of outreach, and they are here to assist you with that. It's very important because after every election cycle, so every 2 years you have to renew your vote by mail. Doesn't mean you have to vote by mail, it just means a ballot gets sent to your home. It's a great way to sit with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Just kind of look at what's on the ballot and get ready for when you go to vote. Oh, so we did put it in here. Another announcement that we have, another service that we have in our office, our wonderful district aide, Linda Billboard, just recently became a notary, and we are now offering free notary services in our office. I guess I should run through some of the other bills that are in progress. I just haven't filed them yet. We're looking at doing a specialty license plate for the Florida Highway Patrol because they're severely underfunded agency. I'm also looking at requiring level 2 background checks for employees in dance studios, gymnastics studios, and martial arts studios. I was kind of shocked that they don't require level 2 background checks. And the idea for this bill was actually brought to me by a friend of mine who owns a dance studio. I had a flood disclosure bill last session that passed. We're bringing it back this session to expand it to cover renters, so that renters know that their rental insurance doesn't cover flooding, and that they're also given a disclosure that if there's been any flooding in the apartment. I also have 2 local bills. One is for the North Springs Improvement District, preventing them from having conflicting relationships and business with their employees. And then Parkland and the city of Coral Springs work together for an annexation agreement where a certain amount of funding will go to Coral Springs and Parkland will annex in a little bit of property over by the Heron Bay area. I also have a bill that would codify some of the Mental Health Commission recommendations that we came up with this past year. Another one, a compost bill. This came to me from a resident. Right now, commercial composting is not allowed in the state of Florida because food waste is considered waste, it's not considered recyclable material. So we just want to change that in statute. I think we're going to get there. We had some really good meetings this week. And then I'm also working on a school psychologist bill compact. I'm working with Representative Vicki Lopez on a My Safe Florida Home Condo Pilot Program amendment so that only 75% of the membership needs to approve it. And we did one more thing in it, I forget right now. And then I'm also working with Representative Yeager on a school safety bill, and some of what we're going to do there is kind of fix some of the things that people weren't listening to on us last year that ended up in the bill. By the way, the compost bill, I think if we can get that passed, that will also help on some of our waste, because now food waste could be commercially partially composted, which will hopefully will be my way of at least helping some of the waste issues and landfill issues that we're having in South Florida. And I think that's about it. And I'm open to any questions. And if you don't mind.
I'll turn it over.